Welcome, humans, to episode 4 of the Red Seal Roundup. Once again, I am Dan, RSG Primarch, and I am here with
Sal, Death March on our Discord.
And today we're doing episode 4 of the podcast. Thank you for joining us again, and we'll get right into our news this week. Sal, we have some Age of Sigmar 3.0 possible box reveal this Saturday.
Yes, yeah, we're pumped. We want to. Our news is going to be about us. What we're hyped for. Like, what are we excited for this week that's been happening? There's not a whole lot coming down the pipe, but the reveals each week have been the silhouettes on Twitter for Age of Sigmar, the box set.
A lot of Stormcast, looks like.
It's
right
been
now.
all Stormcast
We don't
silhouettes.
know. We have no idea yet what the other half of it's going to be.
Well, yeah, there's been the rumors on the internet. There's a lot of people been. There's one particular site. These guys, I think they're called Grimdark on YouTube. They had a lot of spoilers from last week. They have an inside, track of information in the beginning, and it seems like it's pretty on because they did know that the box is going to be called Dominion.
Yes, which was confirmed
which
by
GW also put in the reveal. And they also said that it's going to be this hobgoblin race that's like wolves and
derivative of the Wolf Riders from the Underworlds.
The Underworld set similar, but they got a different definitely take on them, and they did somewhat spoil them with the animation video. Seems like there's going to be a Stormcast was like biffing a goblin in the head with a hammer,
which I'm totally okay
You're
with.
okay.
Biffing goblins,
Makes sense, makes sense.
greenskins, that's fine.
But it seems like people feel like that is going to be the animation for the trailer reveal for the box. Because Indominus had the Necrons fighting the Ultramarines, and it was like, good quality production.
Hopefully we get that kind of animation level.
That's people
Which
think
should
that's
happen with all the animation news we've been getting.
Yes, and people think that snippet we saw with that guy beating the hobgoblin in the face was a portion of what we're going to see Saturday.
Okay. You think we're going to get any more Warhammer Plus news with the streaming of the videos and stuff like that?
Maybe. Yeah, they showed so much, so many snippets of that.
Still no pricing yet or anything, though.
No.
GW could be scary when it comes to pricing.
Yeah. Indominus, like $200?
Well, the minis, I get it. I'm just curious how they're going to do this on this digital side. Historically, they've been a little bit hit or miss.
Oh, pricing for Warhammer Plus.
That could be.
I don't know.
Look what they did with the app.
Which no one uses.
No one really uses.
Yeah, it's. There's that whole paywall system of like stuff being behind a paywall.
All I can say is I have my concerns, but we'll go more deeper into that when it releases.
Per as our hype, though, getting a box set with what those silhouettes, a Stormcast army, you're gonna even if and supposedly the salt out of the mine being mined is saying that they're called the Morik. Fellwater Moriks is the name of, so like instead of Oryx with an M, it's like Moriks. Okay. And the Fellwater is an area on the map. They've also been teasing every week a letter. It's almost written from a Stormcast sage is like going through some kind of runes and smoke, and he's seeing letters, and it's spelling out, I think it's up to Thondia, or Thond, which is actually an area of the map that they showed for Gur, the realm of beasts. So people think that that's going to be where all this new event is going to be taking place in the map.
Hobgoblins and goblins are going to be coming.
Whatever they're going to be, and there's a Stormcast city there, Excelsius it's called. So you assume that faction is going to be allied with that city. They're basically giving us the narrative for the box.
And they did say that basically that nature pushing back against Nurgle was causing basically a growth spurt, which would affect destruction because they thrive when nature thrives.
And Sylvaneth is also in response to that because if there's that sway in life, it's like they did give some, and they talked about the reunification of the dwarves.
Easy now.
We'll get there. That's kind of
I'm gonna be too excited. My beard already grew in a week just talking about dwarves.
There's just so much cool stuff, and the fact that once again, new box. Let's hope that. My only concern is that we get rulebook either access day one, and it's not like a box that's just like maybe Dominion box is just the miniatures, and then you're gonna have a rulebook separate. But then
Dominus type style with no rules.
Maybe no rules. The rules should be free. It's that time and age of, but whenever we'll get into that. But I just want, if I don't buy that box, which seems like it's gonna have limited quantities, there's going to be that problem of getting it.
Which has been a fear lately, the way things have been going on.
So if that's the only way, though, I can get a rule book in the first go, I want a rule book maybe without that box. I want to be able to play the game in what we already have.
So I've already been told by the rep, because they're actually going to be closed a lot over the holiday weekend, and the following week is when I'm going to have a conversation with the rep about
what's gonna
happen,
what they're gonna give you,
what they're gonna get, whether it's gonna be rules and all that stuff. So we'll know more.
Yeah.
In approximately 2 weeks.
Oh, and then Saturday we'll know. They'll show us the box, and we'll see what's in there.
I don't know if we might not see pricing right away.
No.
You know how that goes. So
but
again,
is it
2
be,
weeks we should see more of a concrete what's in it.
Yes.
Is it rules? Is it not rules?
Is it terrain? I mean, think about it. Dominus didn't come with terrain. It was just the miniatures and stuff.
Yeah, until they, are they going to follow the same thing that they did with the 40K, which have the Indominus box, right? With no rules, just minis.
Yeah.
And then have those 3 tiers of entry-level
Yeah,
boxes
that's true,
with 2 armies with basic rules, medium-sized box with some, command elite.
Yeah, I mean they could do all that.
I mean, it worked, so we'll see. Other things on the news right now, we have some Modern Horizons preview week.
The hype is squirrels.
Squirrel.
We're talking squirrels.
Yeah, dude. I listen. Tribal. You and I are both tribal guys. We love tribal.
Yeah,
I think
we'll talk about a little more of them later. But yeah,
it's
definitely
one of our tropes for Magic. We love tribal, and squirrels are just cool.
And it's cool when they're already supporting a card that is specifically focused at tribal and squirrels, like a really cool, fun, 1/1 green creature, and here you go.
And Toski.
It was like
with,
fungus.
Kaldheim.
Ooze.
There's already a bunch of squirrels out there already.
Yeah, that's cool. I
just adding to it, adding almost like squirrel heroes now too.
Yes.
It's really cool.
Yes,
it's not just animals. They actually have like a hero element to them now.
I'm psyched for you, Dan. I know you pump for squirrels, but
Dan. Yeah, he's squirrels. We mentioned squirrels today.
As soon as I saw squirrels,
his eyes almost popped out of his head when we saw the squirrels.
For you, they're there.
Yeah, he's ready to go.
Yeah, so we're getting more spoilers, like that guy, the old legendary hero, Dakon Blackblade. Now he's just called something else. He got a different name.
The poster boy.
He's on the box. So
he's on the 2 commercials they started putting out, which is pretty cool.
Yes, psyched, but still want more Forgotten Realms teasers.
Well, that's
they're
because
coming.
we can't help ourselves, but we can't jump the gun. We have to, help the Horizons guys. There's going to be some good reprints.
Yes.
The fetch lands. It's a good reprint for the community. Have access to
more
the cost of those spells because those cards are expensive, can be prohibitive. So I'm always down for a little bit of a reprint to help people get more access to the game. Accessibility is always key. The more people to play, the healthier the game is.
Yeah, and
the healthier it is for the store as well.
You don't want to spend $60 on a card
side.
either, and then so it's like
all good stuff. And then we got some news. We got the All Things Dritz.
Yes,
including the Sleep Sound video that they gave us.
Yeah, they asked R.A. Salvatore, we'll call him Bob because we're on a first name basis. They asked him to write. They asked him for Wizards of the Coast, can you write us a lullaby? He's like,
what?
Yeah, and not knowing that, he had seen from what that reveal video showed, he had seen pieces of it, but he watched it with us for the first time, which almost brought a tear to his eye. But hearing Cumberbatch do the narration on that, oh my god! Yeah,
imagine if they do animation and they use Cumberbatch.
Oh, I mean,
as something.
I mean, that guy could talk. He could give me.
Yeah, he's got that English.
He could read the instruction manual to that
Sherlock
TV,
Holmes,
and I'd be super pumped. You know what I mean?
Doctor Strange
and Smaug. I mean, he just
Smaug. That's right, Smaug.
He's just that's iconic. That's already become iconic, and it's not that old.
Yeah,
but
he's fantastic.
Watching that short little animated video. Got me so re-pumped to go back and read the Dritz novels.
It's crazy. I'm tempted too. And we're talking about how many books.
And hidden in that interview, which I didn't know, which I had to find out on Twitter, which is, what Twitter does, is in that conversation, they mentioned that there's going to be a Dritz TV show. That was got kind of hidden in there because someone had to ask Wizards to clarify.
Is it about Dritz? And they kind of gave us a...
Well, it was on a clarification. So someone had asked Wizards of the Coast, a clarification that the new movie with Pine and the D&D movie that's coming out.
It's Forgotten Realms based.
It's Forgotten Realms, but it's not a Dritz movie. Dritz is not in it. So they clarified, but there is going to be a Dritz TV show. Is it going to be animated? We don't know, but per se. But
and that's definitely Dritz.
That's going to be 100% Dritz. So
that could go on for years.
Yeah, I mean,
with the amount of content out there, and then Bob's still around. Hopefully, Bob stays around for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, you could just the Crystal Shard trilogy alone as an animated series or any series.
Books.
Oh no,
he's still writing books.
Well, that was part of. They also announced the new another Dritz book that he just finished a trilogy. His first 3 books with HarperCollins. And now he's got another Starlight Enclave, it's called. So they announced that during the interview, and that got me pumped. I'm like, I got 2 more to read, and now I can start reading that. I'm like, I'm going back.
If you know us, D&D is the straw that stirs the drink. For us,
Yeah, no, it's
it makes everything else work for us.
It's the core.
It's the core of what gets us interested in everything else.
Yes,
right.
yes.
The swirls in the drink. Just it starts with D&D.
Yes. Well,
and
that's
the D&D set coming out. Seeing the reveals of the cards, the Dritz card,
Yes.
the Brunor card, the Loth card.
Yes,
all
and-
things that are fantastic.
And it always stems from because D&D is the core game that we can all play together, right? Like that's our group's game that you don't have to just have two people to play. It's our core game when we all sat down at the table together. I think that's why it's always the core game because it's the one you think you'd always the one game we share all at the same time. So, but yeah, I mean the Dritz stuff just looks.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
bringing in the core game. So that's the news, and going into tropes. I would
Yeah,
like
we
to
want
discuss.
to discuss today about why we like the tropes that we like as a group, and,
it-
me and yourself.
And
as-
it does stem from D&D. So
Yeah, D&D. So, hey, Dan, why do you like the tropes you like in D&D? Because I know what you like in D&D, what you gravitate towards. When you open Player's Handbook and you're told to either make a character or create a character of your own, why do you go where you go?
Dan gravitates to the divine. Paladins, priests, clerics, depending on you're a Warcraft or a D&D player. For me, it's always been a cleric. Angels. I like divine interference. I like the heroic aspect of someone putting themselves on the line in front of everybody, and at that last moment, he gets a little help from some other
The clouds
force.
part and
the
beam
ray
comes.
of light comes down, and is that heroic moment. I live, heroic intervention. That's
there's a-
self-sacrifice.
All those spell names
Very
in the name now,
typical.
like-
I know maybe I'm a little boring. People always say it. I'm the goody two shoes guy. That's me, but that's me. I mean,
Well,
it's
that's the trope you like.
It's the trope I like. I like the heroic intervention. I like divine aid, and that carries over into everything I play. It carries over into magic, and magic white is my primary color. It carries over in D&D. It's priests and paladins, clerics and paladins. In Warhammer, believe it or not, in Warhammer, it's carried a little bit into Stormcast because they have that aspect of they're coming down, riding a bolt of lightning and landing. What's more heroic than that? It's the superhero landing. They even make the model now. The storm,
Yeah, with doing the
the Stormcast guy coming down doing. He's
Yeah.
gonna do the hero landing.
You kind of have to bring your own creator with that guy because that's where he's
Yes,
going to be.
exactly. Right. So the hero landing, superhero landing. But the one thing that the divine, actually, I guess it kind of carried over into dwarves for me too, for Warhammer, because they do have ancestor gods that they worship, but they do it differently. It's not.
Yeah, but in D&D too, you never dwarf wasn't your go-to race in D&D as a paladin. You wanted a human.
What had to be human back in the day. When I first started playing, it had to be.
But always
human.
like that's like your what was your first what if you love paladins? What in popular culture was your first thing that made you go, oh, I could be like him in D&D? Like what would be something that like King Arthur, like when we used to watch
King
Excalibur
Arthur,
1,000 times, like he had that
Arthur
feel of like
he's
holy
the
sword.
classic paladin, holy sword, bonding with the weapon, which is always a big thing. That's why I do like the new Legend of the Sword movie, the Guy Ritchie movie.
Yes,
I actually enjoy that movie. Critically,
Yeah, well, it's a paladin.
It's
To
a
me, it was
paladin.
when I told
it's
you
a paladin
go
learning
with-
how to use his weapon.
Exactly,
That's how I
yes.
look at it. And
Yeah.
because I maybe a little narrow focus, I don't look at all the other stuff that maybe they don't like the Hollywood element of it. But I like the paladin bonding with his weapon, which goes back into my whole D&D campaign with the weapons.
Being a focal point of yes.
I love that aspect. Again, it's a heroic moment. It's the hero training. It's the maybe call it Rocky Balboa syndrome. I grew up in the Rocky era.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Rocky's always training to get better. What's the new obstacle? And then it's a new obstacle. Now Clubber Lang is here. He's got to learn how to fight differently. And instead of having a weapon, he's almost like a monk, I guess you could say. He's training differently and
Yeah.
learning new techniques to fight the new
Yeah,
challenge.
and that spirituality connection grows as
And
he
again,
gets
and that's
like
where that my trope comes back into. That spiritual elements always get me. And dwarves have a spiritual element in their weapons when they make them.
yes, you had multiple. You could do that in Warhammer Fantasy. They have the rune system. You have
And then they
in
also-
D&D, Dwarven Pantheon has that.
Dwarves have honor. Dwarves have loyalty to clan. That's another big aspect of just my life in general. So that's where I lean. So I know what you're going to say, but let's hear where your tropes come from.
D&D first definitely had like the morphing over the years because like when I first started playing D&D with you guys, it was like, all right, you want to be the racial side was like elves. Like elves were like the way you went when you're young because they are aloof. They don't really. They're more worried about themselves, regardless of what you say. They have that kind of. Their culture is always about being haughty and stuff, but like it was
a little pompous, maybe.
Pompous, but it was more about like the speed and the agile of being an elf and stuff. But that transcended once they got to D&D and having classes, and the class that I love and I always want to play is a wizard. That's the first class that gave you the sense of, you start off so small and powerless, more or less.
Really weak.
Yeah, I mean, second edition, I had a dagger.
And magic missile.
And a magic missile. And I would cast magic missile, and then I was done for the day, and I held my dagger. But as you grew in power, your exponential power growth in that game was actually
world-changing power.
Yeah, the fighter went up every level, and you're like, all right, cool. But like when I went from first level to fifth level as a wizard, it was like, whoa.
And they carried that trope into the Dragonlance saga with Raceland. Remember how weak Raceland was?
Yeah, and I never read those books, but he was always something I looked at and go, ooh, he's a guy that is, like you said, his power growth is insane.
Immense, who's world-changing power.
And a weak person, he's not like strong and stuff. So like that idea of harnessing magic for D&D was the draw. And like what you could do with those spells, because D&D is, you could have a wish. And what does that entail? You could do anything you could think of, and the DM okays it, and it has its consequences. But like magic is world-shaping in D&D. So as D&D, my trope was always finding that. And then there was always that kind of like, all right, well, I'm not playing a wizard. I want to play the character that kills the wizard. I want to be the rogue that the wizard can't get to, and like he's the guy that drops the wizard in the combat. So I always went back and forth between like, stealthy person who wants to kill the wizards or being a wizard.
How did that carry over for you into Warhammer, though?
So Warhammer
was Dark Elves at first, I believe.
Yeah,
or was it even Undead? Maybe?
So Warhammer was weird because it's kind of like our history of us playing Warhammer Fantasy Battle is its own kind of history in its sense.
Third edition.
Yeah, third edition. I met you guys, and you had just had a friend who kind of left the group and left all his miniatures behind. And you guys are like, here's a bunch of metal dark elves.
Yes,
putting together.
Right. That's right. I totally forgot that we gave you all those dark elves.
And I still have them in a tackle box in my garage. So putting them
together.
Might
be lead in there. Be careful.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's in my blood. So I remember building those dark elves, playing third edition. Not really knowing like anything about the race themselves in third edition. They're always very light,
very simple.
They're just not high elves.
Racial overtones.
Yeah, they're not wood elves. They're not high elves. They're just dark elves.
Yeah.
So that translated playing with those early on, playing elves into the later editions and stuff, and once again playing Dan's dwarves. And I just got. Remember how like those elves were repeating crossbows, and it was like literally my games of remembering is like I was getting chopsticks and then throwing them at tanks. That's like how I felt that game was. Strength 3, no minus to saves. You're like 2+, and I'm just like chopsticks against metal walls.
Iron breakers and the warrior and I'm like the hammerers.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy that anymore.
Back then.
Yeah, so they were just
the best unit you had. I think was like the Cold One Knights.
Cold One, right? Yeah, and you got 5 of them that cost like 9,000 points,
and they were metal. They always fell apart.
And they had stupidity, so they might not charge when you wanted them to.
I forgot about stupidity.
Horrible thing. So I got to a point where it was just like, all right, cool. Our group meta was, people had their armies and stuff. I think I dabbled in undead for like 10 minutes, and then I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna fall to chaos. Chaos has to be the way.
Okay.
So and then
another great one falls to chaos.
Yes. And I totally fell in love with chaos in all things form. And then at the end of our career of that was really demons of chaos. Mainly because Bloodletters had Killing Blow, and I could kill all your heavily armored guys with 2+s on a single swing.
Yeah. Even the Bretonians, even the guys playing knights.
All that, yeah. So that whole that trope led to where I'm now is the chaos is kind of my my trope.
Yeah, we noticed.
And then Slanesh became something that I loved because the idea of excess was, in my thinking, all the other gods
do the same thing.
Are furthering the idea of excess. You're anytime you feel pride in killing your opponent, that's excess.
Blood for the blood god.
Anytime you rage out and want to collect blood, your schemes that lead to fruition through Zinch, they feed excess. You know what I mean? Like they can't just do a little bit.
And I think in the writing over the years, the other gods always feared Slanesh, knowing that that's what they were.
Yes, the youngest of the 4, but has the potential to surpass us if we're not careful.
They were always technically feeding her.
Yeah, or him,
or
it.
Or whatever nowadays.
I like it was the underdog god. I like I liked all those things. So that became my fantasy chaos trope. But now I just love all things chaos. So trying to think what else Magic is always just been. I mean, I love black, but I think red green's always been. I just like the idea of big creatures and like fire spells and like that was cool. But when I was a kid, those black cards were like our
red white for me, because red was where dwarves were. White was where paladins and clerics were, and angels.
And was it even
Although
dwarves?
angels are everywhere.
Was there dwarf cards when we were kids?
Yeah, old school dwarves. Yeah, dwarf warrior.
That's right. They were just
it's like a two,
like
just
red
a two,
minotaur.
That's the original dwarf warrior.
Yeah, I think that's for us. Our trope of Magic was tribal because there was no mechanics back then. There wasn't madness. You didn't have +1 counters. There was none of that.
It
was just like, all right, I'm going to make a deck with a lot of the same monster type.
It was flying. It was the walk abilities like planeswalk, swamp walk.
But that was all like, and that was based on your
first strike.
Yeah, it was based on your color. So like if you were red, you had mountain walking, but that usually lent to giants or minotaurs or whatever you took. So
all those abilities were probably kind of splashed all over the place until Magic found its color identity later. And then,
it was more ability
red
identity.
was getting the combat tricks. White was getting a lot of defensive type stuff.
Yes.
Black got the
keywords got away from
trickery.
that.
Yeah. Well, that's how the game was able to grow.
Yeah.
Because you have your base rules and then you add keywords, which is what changed the game.
Yes.
And every set since then has pretty much had
which
one or two keywords.
And it's a marketing tool because then like no one's ever going to buy out of their tribal. Like in that sense, like you know what, I'm gonna. Oh, there's green merfolk. There you go. Like you know what I mean. Like so.
Look, even I'm still doing it. My newest commander deck is the Magna deck. With guess what? Dwarves, dragons, and artifacts, which is.
It's mono red, right?
It's mono red. And
but if there's something white, it's going to sprinkle it in there.
Well, that's what's coming because Bruno Battlehammer, he's red white. He's Boros colors, and he looks like a pretty good commander. So
yes.
Again, but I'm still in my trope. You know, I don't. I guess I don't want to escape it because I like it so much.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's part of the. Especially our group, when it came to Warhammer Fantasy Battle, was everyone kind of found their like niche. Big Beto was the Wood Elf guy for many years, and then he became the Death Lord. He was the Necromancer.
He did dabble in Bretonia for a while too.
Yes, and then he turned all those Bretonians into like Death Knights.
He actually made. His whole idea was that there was a Bretonian kingdom that got overrun by vampires.
And became a dead court of Bretonian
which
vampires.
Was great. It goes back to his the way his machinations.
That's Beto's trope. We had
even his commander decks now. It's all graveyard shenanigans.
Yep. Those tropes. We still hold on to those tropes.
Yeah, his trope is still carried over into Magic. It's all undead stuff.
Yeah, your brother had the ogres. Mikey had ogres. Kenny had the beastmen.
Yeah, both my brothers are. Although Kenny in Magic differs a little bit, he goes a little more tricksy. So does Mike, though. Honestly,
they like blue and red.
They do the blue and red tricksy.
Yeah. Mikey started his chaos, but then he found his ogres. He really likes the ogres trope in fantasy battles.
Again, but it goes back to our play group. And I think that's what everybody brings with them when they come to the store. It's like what was their play group, and then they bring those tropes to the store.
Yeah,
and then it just adds to the flavor of the community.
Yes,
and for us, that's why we're always talking about the old school guys. Because we grew up with them, and that's how we played. Mike's on the Warhammer table was ogres, because Mike he just wants to walk up to you and just smash you.
Yep,
and that's what ogres did. They walk right up to you and they smash you. No games, no trickery.
Yep, big charge.
Just, here you go. They drink that muscle milk, bro, and they come up and they smash it, and that's it.
Muscle milk.
And then Ken was same thing with Beastmen.
Yeah, remember the mechanic when they used to just come like whole swaths used to raid off the table edge and they would ambush.
Yeah, it was like an ambush mechanic.
Great mechanic.
On the side. Skirmish, like large skirmishing units of Beastmen. And then the Minotaurs, the big bricks of Minotaurs just smashing things. But then their trope carried over into Magic, and some reason they got tricksy in Magic. Instead of face beating, they got tricksy with the reds and the blues and the spells and Mike with his assassin deck and twiddles and tapping things and killing it. And,
And that's even in D&D, it was like you get they both like the melee fighters. Your brother Mike likes the clerics. Like so, our tropes have stayed the same, but some of them have changed or morphed over the years. I know mine's morphed because Elves as a teenager, I could relate with Elves like a lot, but as an adult, dwarves mean more to me because dwarves are more about family and clan and being a parent and having your own clan.
Yeah. Well, like you said, it applies to your real life.
I wasn't
mentality.
aloof anymore. I have a family. I have kids, and that was more important to a dwarf. So I identify with dwarves,
and I think that's why I did because I was always like that from day one, which is why I'm like the de facto leader
Yeah.
of our little group because I am the oldest, which is why they call me Dusty.
Dusty's just fucking old.
Because I'm oldest, old AF, as
Yeah.
they say.
Beeping up to beep me.
Then, so dwarves always resonated with me because of that exact same reason. And then, as you aged,
Yes,
You
but
felt the same
I
way.
can't stand
Warhammer dwarves.
Warhammer dwarves. Those guys can
Well,
go
because you have
They can go
that-
die in a mountain. They're just different dwarves.
You
Like
have
those.
that old school hatred of them because of the way they played on the table too.
Yeah, and you know what? They play and their culture is different than a Tolkien dwarf or even the dwarves from Warcraft.
They're a little more greedy, less loyalty to the race and more loyalty to clan.
Yeah.
In Warhammer.
Yeah,
Clan
they were more about the grudge.
It seems
than,
like clan supersedes race in Warhammer. Like their clan reputation and whether you besmirch their clan
Yes.
is more important than the survival of the race, which is why they've been diminishing in
True.
Warhammer.
And I think
whereas in Forgotten Realms, it's the complete opposite. It's race.
Yeah, and I think it's set up like that in Warhammer because you could have dwarves fight each other and you have a reason. So like clans, you know, I guess it's the thematic part of being the game. But yeah, just because you were always the dwarf player and it wasn't like someone else going, I'm gonna make a dwarf army. But I just didn't like the whole their ethos and until you got to like Forgotten Realms dwarves and I love Warcraft dwarves. They're just
Warcraft
different.
dwarves are-
Lord of the Rings dwarves have the same kind of feeling, but for some reason
Those tropes carried over right into Warcraft for me. What do I play in Warcraft?
Yeah.
It's paladins and priests.
yes.
I mean, I dabble in other things occasionally, but it's paladins and priests.
Yeah.
Everybody has
the
their
Horde and
trope.
Alliance. We always talk about like we liked both sides, but if we're gonna spend how many hours staring at a screen, I always wanted the fantasy trope to look like a fantasy trope. I got
I wanted
tired
to
of
see
like
human castles, human buildings.
what was like the village. Like when
Yeah.
you went in
Even, or
Stormwind,
the elven stuff was okay too.
it looked like a medieval city Stormwind. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm gonna spend 9 hours playing this game.
or living in a giant hut.
Hey, the first time we went to Ironforge, I mean, I was like,
yeah.
this is a real dwarven city. Look at the size of this place.
I still remember logging off because we played it till like 2 or 3 in the morning. I had to go to work. I had like an hour sleep. I go to work. And I remember you because you were home the next day and you were like, "Have you logged back on?"
yeah, I
I'm
went up
like,
the
"No,
hill. Did you go up the hill?
Did you
I
go
was
up
like,
the
no.
hill? I'm like, no. And back then, the video cards, we couldn't even see that far.
No, yeah, it was like
What was it? Anvilmar is the first
that was the town. That was the flight path before we got to
before you got to
yeah.
Ironforge, right? And then you walk up the hill.
Yeah, you went to
into
bed. And it's
Ironforge.
like what is it, like 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm like,
Yeah,
what's
I'm
this
like,
path go?
And you walked upstairs and you walked up the hill and you saw Ironforge. And then you called me the next morning. And I was like half awake at work. He's like, as soon as you get home and you log on,
run
call
up
me when
there.
you run up there.
Oh my god, it was like Mithril Hall in my mind.
It was.
Like the idea of
It was.
this is a dwarven city. Like this is what
In
it
the
should.
mountain.
Yeah, I literally did like I must have went around 5 laps around the whole city. I was like,
And
oh my God.
the music was epic.
Yes, it
it
was-
felt enormous.
Yes, but same thing with Stormwind. I wanted the medieval trope, and I was tired of living in like the bone and the huts of the Horde, and it had nothing to do with
Even
the
the city
classes.
felt like a big hut.
Yeah, well, it was just
Even the walls looked like the walls of a hut.
yeah, and it was like I liked when we played on the Horde. I loved the undead, but that trope. When we went back, I'm like, I just want my character to look like a fancy trope because we weren't playing D&D, so it was a D&D.
And you wanted, yes, exactly.
It's
You
a
wanted that
D&D
RPG
fix,
element. Yeah, again, the D&D. It always goes well for us. Again, that's our big trope, D&D.
Yes,
You know, and then it carries over in everything we do.
yes, and then trope. Our final trope could be our Star Wars tropes. You can go there because I know where your loyalties lie.
Yes, I am a Rebel Alliance guy. There's no doubt, hands down. But that's because I'm a Luke fan.
Yeah,
Skywalker for me, I'm original series. So I'm talking, I saw it in the theaters when I was 10 years old.
yep.
So again, Dusty, old. Watching Luke grow up
What's a movie theater? No I'm kidding.
was somewhere in Queens. I think I was in Queens. I can't even remember. Richmond Hill, Queens. It was crazy. But watching Luke grow up and become, again, my iconic... Eventually, first episode,
no,
what happens? He finds a sword.
Yeah,
Oh,
no, it's-
Obi-Wan, this is your father's lightsaber. I'm like...
It's that hero's journey is like a paladin for you in
It's
reality.
my paladin journey again. He learns about an ancient order of knights. I mean, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah. Yeah,
He
mythology. George Lucas knew mythology.
He knew
and
mythology.
He used
He knew what he was doing. He gave me my trope. He said, this is why I love Luke. Even Darth Vader. He's a fallen knight, right? That's what that's the way the Jedi look at
Yeah.
it. As they say in Star Wars, from a certain point of view.
Yeah, well, he's the Black Knight as
He's the Black
opposed
Knight,
to
as
the
opposed-
good knights.
And then spoiler, he's his dad. Oh my god! Yeah, if you don't know that already, you're watching the wrong podcast.
Yeah.
But again, it's my trope. He's bonding. He's learning his skills. They have the Rocky training session on Dagobah. He's running with Yoda on his back. He's learning how to do all these Jedi techniques and getting better with the sword.
Yeah, the Force being somewhat like the divine.
And then by the time, exactly. It's kind of like a divine assistance. It's not full guidance, which is what I always liked about the divine. It was like they kind of give you, and then in the end, you still got to make the choice.
Yeah.
Here's the help, and then you got to make the choice.
And similar to the Force, you don't really get to like in D&D, going back to that for that divine, you really don't get a seat in like the halls, the pantheon until you're at that level.
Yeah.
And then kind of like same thing in Star Wars, you transcend, you become one with the Force. Like, you're like...
Yeah, again, but you have to get there.
You have to get there.
By making the right choices.
Through trials, through a lot of trials and tribulations.
A little guidance, but not go here and do this. It's like, go here and make a choice.
Yes.
Remember your choices. Remember your failure in the cave.
Yeah, no, yeah. It's
made
the
a
same
choice,
arc.
and it was the wrong choice. It was the wrong choice at that time. But eventually, leading up to Jedi, I don't want to go too far into a conversation because we could do that on another Star Wars topic. But Luke becoming a Jedi, that's how the series
becomes the knight.
He becomes
the knight. Fully knighted.
He was
like, yeah.
a Jedi Knight, and he looked badass. He had the black on. He looked a little meaner. I mean, God knows he had a car accident, and that's why his face got a little aged and whatever. But
yeah, that was beginning of Empire. But yeah,
he looked more gruff and serious. And even when he walked to Jabba's palace, he had it was no longer this. Oh, I'm not sure.
It was the confidence of being trained and like
he knew what he was doing. He had his skills.
But still unsure.
Bring
but
me to your master. It just was the hero defined at that point. Cool. He's like, I'm a hero. And I mean that changed with the new movies, and that's a whole nother topic.
Mm-hmm.
I think you and I are on opposite sides of the fence of that, but it's probably because of who you like.
Yeah, I mean that's the Luke arc is not so much my love of the Empire in all things Empire. I just if you know
good guys
me,
need bad guys to kill. That's why
if
the
you know,
Empire's there.
yeah, if you know me, I love the Empire. Because when I was a kid,
wait, do you even know you were in that hat?
I do.
Okay.
I actually, last week's video, I thought we were gonna do the tropes, so I had my Slanesh on and my Empire hat.
Okay.
My Empire hat, I got a Slanesh shirt on. But I think the opening scene in New Hope had the complete reverse effect on me than maybe most other kids, where they were like, oh, these bad guys, and like, oh, they're cutting down these guys must be good. No, I was the complete opposite. I saw that scene, I'm like, wow, these guys are kicking their ass.
Yes.
Who are these guys?
They're
I want in. I want in with those guys, and like it wasn't even so much Vader.
This guy that comes in at the end.
Yeah, I mean,
top of that.
Vader was cool.
And he didn't do much.
No, he just
got
showed
up,
and you know right away that he's in charge by how George filmed that. But it was the idea of the faceless warrior. There's no personality there. It's just this wave of just white, and the audacity to wear white. That is something that always baffled me, but I appreciate it, which made me like Storm.
Well, just white, yeah.
You're not in camouflage. You're not hiding. It's like
we're here.
This is here. You know we're here and we're showing up. Bring it to us. Yeah,
shock troop.
Yeah,
shock and awe. I mean, that's what stormtroopers are supposed to be.
We won't get into the conversation of stormtroopers can't hit stuff because I have that argument of they can't hit stuff because of plot armor.
Well, that's the one thing they can't hit. It's plot armor.
Yeah, it's plot armor.
It's not plot armor. I mean, we go back to Rogue One.
Yeah, I mean, the only time Death Troopers miss in the whole movie is when Chirrut shows up and he's like, I'm one with the Force, I'm one with the Force.
Because
like,
plot armor.
Because plot armor. So, I mean, and I understand you need cannon fodder in movies to plow through.
Which is what happened in the opening scene that you were just talking about.
Well, it was reversed, yes.
Yeah,
but
reversed.
When you watch Mandalorian...
They couldn't hit nothing either.
Who?
The Rebel Troopers.
Oh no! Yeah, it was. Well, you could see
they only killed I mean, if you count it, I think only like 5 or 6 stormtroopers died during that siege. It was 2.
The guy
that first came in,
first in, first dies. That's the rule. Just remember that if you become a Navy SEAL or any other crazy stuff. Yeah, you're first in, first dead. Yeah. Maybe not SEAls, but those guys are. But they killed 2 troopers. One guy's on the floor. When they walk in, there's a guy checking a dead guy in the floor, which I thought was interesting. I'm like,
he might not have even been dead. Maybe the armor did work.
We don't know. That's a whole nother conversation. Does stormtrooper armor really work? I think it does. It just, you never see anything post. We see a guy get hit.
Well, it's like wounded.
We don't know he's
they're all wounded.
unconscious.
Not everybody's dead. Right? Any battle, they're not all just
there's
dead.
medics, right? There's like medics in every military. Who knows what happens later? The guy's just not mortally wounded. Maybe he's not dead. They have to, maybe he's not back in service. That's a whole different conversation. But the Empire appealed to me based on, I always look at it as if you're a parent or if you're ever in any form of management at a job, you appreciate the Empire because efficiency and order are paramount, especially in my house, because as a parent, that's the one side of the Empire you can agree with. You want things done in a certain way.
Yeah. Well, at home, I'm Vader at home.
That's what I mean. So like there's that. So the Empire appealed to me where I worked was you need to
the
be.
The Empire, even though it might be evil per se, it still represented order.
Yes.
And that could get us into the whole D&D conversation about lawful good, lawful evil.
True. And lawful, once again, a trope is most of my alignments I play is either lawful, neutral, so I could play both sides of the coin. I don't really play lawful good as much, and lawful neutral is the perfect alignment for me. My wife says I'm lawful neutral; she'll agree.
I still claim that I'm lawful good, even though some people think I'm lawful evil, and I don't know why. I really don't. I don't understand that.
My wife knows it's the letter of the law, good or bad. The letter of the law is fine by me.
Order, right?
Yeah.
In the end, and I think that's why we always get along, because we both are on the side of law.
Yes.
We might have like the gray areas that change that, but first and foremost, it's the law.
Yeah. And D&D is always weird for me because I like playing the good guys in D&D because I like that idea of being the noble warrior or fighting for the good cause. But in everything else, I like being evil. To me, Palpatine's one of the smartest evil characters ever.
All right, so I profess my love for Luke. Who's like the guy? Is it Vader or is it the Emperor?
It's
or is it somebody else?
It's weird when it comes to, because I just love the idea of
the Empire
and the First Order for some sense, but less the First Order.
You could just say the Empire.
Yeah, because there's just that idea of
because I don't like the Jedi Council. They don't follow the laws. Sometimes they go, non-interference. Well, you guys are the ruling body.
True. And when we see them, their hubris has taken them to that point, and they're manipulated by that. But that's a whole, it's its own philosophy.
Well, that's more plot armor.
I like Vader being the fallen knight. Look, the idea of
see, that's where
look at what I've become. But I'm still, I have to go along with this
again. Where I agree with you, because I do love Vader. I love that he was good. His path was bringing him towards what he thought was the right choices.
Yeah. Well, I'm bringing order to my empire. The idea of
he had again. It's a choice.
Yeah.
And that's where that whole the force, the divine, the interference,
and he saw the system of the Jedi
wasn't working.
Didn't work,
and he just.
How do we reorganize this?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And it's not always the right way.
And I can respect that.
Yes.
I don't think his initial choice was about evil. It was a little bit of a selfish choice in the end, trying to save his wife.
True.
He was a little deceived.
But then that might become from a being of a life told that you're not supposed to have attachments.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it's there's always that why does he do that? Well, because
the paladin taking his oath. So there's the trope again.
Yes. Taking your oath, but it's you can't not love.
Yeah.
Not to love. It's there's problems. It
happens in the priesthood too.
Yes.
In Catholic religion, they're not supposed to marry, but yet they're supposed to herd the sheep. But how could you know what I'm going through if you never have kids yourself? So it's that's where you start the question.
Yes.
But that's where you make the choices.
For me too, that the love of the faceless soldier. I remember being in high school, I studied art, and I remember always fascinated with propaganda art because that art is meant to just be the soldier is the generic. It's not a person. It's the symbolic nature of the unity of the soldier. It's a faceless guy. He's out there fighting for you. Good side. Americans had the propaganda too. So that idea. Obviously, World War II is a big influence on
G.I. Joe.
True, but it's also I loved Cobra just because it was this a uniform, faceless kind of unity.
Lawful order.
True.
It's just a matter of certain point of view, is it good or is it evil?
Yes, and it was also too, but I also love the Grand Army of the Republic because that's an army meant for good.
Yeah.
But once again, they're all the same, and it's the armor. It's that idea of the armored warrior
any military force usually has unity unless it's the rebels. Because they're not an army.
Yeah,
it's rebels, and that's why it's ragtag looking ships, and even their uniforms are not. Yours will look different than mine.
No, it's all hob. It's all patchwork together and stuff.
Whatever they can get their hands on.
And it didn't have appeal. And bad guys usually tend to look better. It's just plain and simple. In aesthetics,
always.
just how it is. So for me,
it's part of what gets you to sign up.
Yeah. But I think the Emperor as a bad guy is fascinating. It's the guy that, like, aside from everything else he did, he succeeded in his only thing he really wanted to do was the Sith mandate of ending the Jedi. Like, in the end, he did all the other stuff, which is gravy for him.
Yeah. Just
but, like,
in addition,
he sat on that. He sat his chancellor just to make the Jedi collapse.
Right.
And after that,
from making the Sith collapse.
pretty much, it's just. I'm sure that mandate.
It was vengeance.
It's vengeance.
It's vengeance.
But the long game. Like, to me,
the
that's
long-
the perfect villain. Is the longest
Well, villains
game.
always play the long game.
Yeah.
A good villain.
A good villain.
really good villain.
The guy,
who plays
the guy
long game.
that pulls the trigger
'Cause
too
he's the one
early
you, 'cause
sucks.
he's the one you don't know who's a villain. I mean, that's what happened.
Yeah.
They didn't know he was the villain.
Yeah, to be
You
under your
always
nose
wondered
the whole
because,
time.
you always wondered how did he get to that power, and then when they show us the backstory and how he did it, you didn't. I mean, we saw it coming because we know, we're on the outside looking in.
But to realize that they're blind to
to
it
see
because
how it would happen.
yeah,
you
Yoda
know?
always says in those movies, but the Shroud of the Dark Sides, the
Heavy weighs heavy on,
and it kept on blocking their ability to foresee anything and not knowing he's right under your nose. Like, and then to boot, for Palpatine to use the political system to get where he was is fascinating. It's like, so he's a fascinating evil character, and to play that long of a game, it's always why I loved like the Lich in D&D. To me, he's the long game wizard. The guy that's like, I'm going to surpass
really
death.
long game.
It's a really long game. And I find that fascinating to be so focused on your goal.
Yeah.
Whatever your goal is, it could be, I want to achieve this. You might get there and still want to go beyond
it's
it.
usually just pure power at that point.
Yes, or just power over everything.
Everything.
Or power of death, like in
Which
a lot of those
which
evil
is what they
guys.
accomplished by becoming a Lich. So,
But yeah, I love the whole structure of the Empire. I love just the look and the formation of the Empire is, we're learning that you haven't been watching the Bad Batch yet. You'll
Not
get
yet,
to it. That's really another interesting to see why everybody accepts the Empire.
okay.
Because it's there's no real spoiler here, but it's people have gotten so much. There was so much bad coming out of the Clone Wars. People are just tired of. A lot of people, other civilizations suffer during the Clone Wars. We don't see it as much in the movies,
They
but
probably see it as a form of protection and order. Again, order.
well, because it's been a war
civilization-
for how long?
Civilization craves order. And whether or not it has an evil or a good
Yeah.
overtone, they don't necessarily care because, I can't eat.
Yeah.
I can't have a house because it's getting blown up all the time. I'll take what I can get just to keep a roof over my head and food on the table.
There's a lot
and
of-
then we'll change later.
Yes, there's a
and
lot
when
of
we see
instances
there's-
in Bad Batch
there's a price to be paid.
where you hear people talking. It's like, I never got this from the Republic.
Yeah.
The Empire's given it to me.
Yeah.
Or so like it's interesting to see that they don't know the full extent of what's going on, but it's the idea of like you said, order. I mean, my refrigerator's ordered. I want to go home and like have my sock drawers ordered. I don't want to find. It's just human nature in a way. But
Human nature is the four walls have to be up and not blowing up. And food has to be on the table, and the family has to be taken care of.
Yeah.
And if at the time the Empire was providing that,
yeah, so it's interesting
what
to
you
see
can't-
that transition.
you can't
of
blame
moving,
people
yeah.
for
It's really cool. It's they're moving away from clones and conscripted troops. It's a whole thing. Watch it. Bad Batch has been really good. But yeah, so that's like my. I think I corrupted your oldest son, and I got him on the
goodness.
side of the Empire, and
Absolutely.
chaos too. So
Absolutely.
Danny boy,
That's all right. That's all right. Well, who did your son like again?
I know it works both ways.
I know it works. All
It
right.
works both
So
ways.
we're both playing the long game
yeah,
here.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
son Lucas loves the Temple Guard. He's just
Aiden,
like so.
Aiden hasn't decided yet. Aiden's kind of still on
No,
the fence.
but he's got the Aiden Skaven little rat boy. We're gonna get him to play some
don't know how
Skaven. That's
that
his
happened.
trope.
I still don't know how his
That's
trope-
his trope.
I don't know. I don't know how he got into rats. I don't know.
I don't
I can't. We're gonna have to have him on.
because they capitalize on the dwarves.
We'll have to have him on. Maybe that's why. Maybe he wants to.
Because where do they
capitalize on-
live? They go into
Maybe he wants to undermine my.
Well, what
his
would you
dad.
rather? Here you go. Here's a question. Would you rather have Skaven
Yeah.
or Orcs and Goblins? Two dwarven.
I'll take Skaven.
Okay, there
I'll
you
take
go.
Skaven.
I knew it.
I'll take a Skaven.
I would take Skaven too.
I'll take this game. The Orcs and Goblins.
Because they both move into dwarven homes.
Yeah,
They
they're both
take over
problems. They're
dwarven
both
places.
problems. If he had to falling into Skaven is
Yes.
the lesser of the two evils.
Yes. But I got Doe on the Empire and I
Yeah.
got Doe on Chaos.
Yes.
Yes. But
Although your son's leaning towards chaos now too, right?
yeah, he is Chaos. So he's all over the place. But yeah, he likes that idea.
He is.
Yes. But he likes the Jedi, so
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's fun to see the tropes and how we've kind of they follow us into our gaming.
Oh, it goes back into how I would like to hear from other people. There are people that come to the store from other playgroups, right? I mean, a lot of times we get people into product and get them into genres and we get them into gaming or whatever, but a lot of people come from another group.
Yeah, and we share tropes because I always hear like he's like, "Oh, you're just like my friend.
Yes.
He loves this," and like so, like there's people of similar.
I would love
ilk.
to hear people put in the comments, what their trope is and how it developed.
Yeah, like why did you what was the defining moment? Sometimes it's that moment that you find that thing that you love. For me, it was that the opening scene of New Hope.
Yeah.
Like that's burned in my brain. Plus, because I watched it on a VHS tape and I think I demagnetized the VHS tape. I watched that so many times, and it was a bootleg. But that like ingrained in your brain kind of thing. Maybe you have that moment that made you like those things. So it's put it in the comments below and let us know.
Yeah, Luke he found Excalibur.
Yeah.
Ben gave him Excalibur. That's how my mind worked, to this day. Still, I mean, the paladin priest,
and it's his
finding a
father's
weapon,
sword. I mean,
and
that
it's
too
his
is like
father's sword,
Obi-Wan tells him this is your father's lightsaber. So that's like
he wanted me to give this to you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and you've done that in D&D. You've had heirlooms of like even your characters that you didn't play with us when you were younger. The idea of family passing this on and stuff. That's part of your.
I do
trope.
it. I do it in real life too. I mean, it's just.
Well, no, yeah, it's cool.
It's funny how
here's this artifact. It glows.
That's great.
It glows.
All right, we come to question time here at Red Sail Roundup. We got a last-minute question from an old friend of ours, Mr. Michael Bays.
Yes, also known as Bez.
Says, I have a question. I know you guys are all about role-playing in the city, but as a player, I love the mechanics of D&D. Listen, check for traps, surprise, roll initiative, vanquish foe, loot the corpse, repeat. But my favorite memories were of hijinks, shenanigans, and tomfoolery. Was there ever a time when a player did something so distracting that it made for great comedy relief? And it's very poignant that it's Michael Bays asking this question.
Yeah.
And you can
for
elaborate for us, please.
If anything, Bez definitely added to the comedic relief at times.
Which was his role outside of the table role.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I think it usually was Mike and Mike. Your brother. And so
one would enable
Bez and
the
Mike
other.
would get into a tangent. Usually go off tangent. We'd have some comedy outside the game. And then the one incident that he did bring up was we'll call it the blowgun incident. Which was interesting because
I still see the shrapnel.
Yeah, it's during pause in a game, and I think it was your mom had a plastic candy cane that was hollow.
Christmas decoration.
Yeah, about 12, maybe about 14 inches long, plastic candy cane. And I had brought over this medieval helmet that I had, and Bez thought it would be a great idea. Let's put the helmet on.
I was watching this happen.
Yes.
And I still regret not stopping.
Yes, and let me get my mouth. He had his mouth, basically sticking out of the helmet, and he was loading up the candy cane with gumballs, and almost doing the reverse blowgun thing, blowing so hard that the projectiles were hitting him in the head on the helmet, and they would just shatter gumballs everywhere into the basement.
Gumball shrapnel.
Shrapnel everywhere.
All over my mom's basement.
Yes, yeah.
And all over us.
Yes.
I remember pieces hitting my face.
Everywhere.
And I mean, anger and laughter mixed together.
Yes.
So
And it was
as Bez like to say, hijinks.
Hijinks. Yeah, it was the complete opposite of what a blowgun was supposed to do. Instead of shooting forward,
Nothing to do with D&D.
No, it was funny because you think like the blowgun is meant to like not shoot yourself in the face, but that's what.
Well, I think when he first shot it, though, what we're missing is the key element here, because we were talking about Bez, right? The key element is here. The first time he shot the blowgun, he did it sans helmet.
Yes.
He did it without the helmet.
Yeah, and realizing that he needed head protection.
The concrete wall and exploded all over the back wall.
Yes.
He could have lost an eye.
Yeah, that was paintball. I would
That's
say
how
paintball velocity would have been
at least
a
paintball velocity. We're talking about a hard, old school, like blue, red, yellow gumball.
It's like a slingshot
that
at that
you
point.
lose a mole or two when you're chewing on it. It's borderline jawbreaker.
Yeah, they were almost jawbreaker because they were like stale gumballs.
Yeah, and the thing exploded, and it's like shock or are you okay? Then we started laughing about it, and he's like, "Oh wait, we got a helmet."
Yes, yeah.
And
so that's the hijinks. I would say that's a good example of hijinks. I think also another example, which it was Bez, would be in-game hijinks was Bez's cleric was always obsessed with a spell called Rock Burst. It was an AoE spell that did.
Was that 3.5? I think it was 3.5.
I think it was 3.5. And he always was. Now, this is our cleric who needs to have his heals accessible for us when we're damaged. And
1990s.
it was like, I need my offensive spell, and it was Rock Burst. We never let him use it. No, Bez, you can't use Rock Burst. So the one time in the adventure, you threw a swarm of these little gibberlings. There was 100 of them. They were
like
all 1 hit point.
1 hit point each. And there was 100 and something.
100. And we're in a cave with stalagmites and stalactites.
And you can't swing your sword at them. There's just too many.
They were just
trying to step on them and punch them, but there's too many. And guys are taking like little, kind of bites, almost like periodic
death by
damage
1,000 cuts kind of thing. And Bez stands up his cleric's like, I'm going to cast Rock Burst. Danger close right on top of us.
Danger close. Like he was calling a strike.
Yeah, and we were like figuring out the damage. I'm like, I think you could survive the week. And just do it. And he rolled. He made visually for us, the whole ceiling exploded down, shrapneled all these things. They all died.
And you guys got messed up.
We were messed up, but
you
we
lived.
He killed 100 1 hit point monsters. And I never laughed so hard in my life because it was like
we were always trying to stop him.
Yes, and it was the perfect
application.
application.
It turns out it was kind of like plot armor.
Oh yeah, no.
Because I want to use Rock Burst. No.
Yeah.
I want to use Rock Burst. No.
Yeah.
For I don't know how many, 6 months, a year.
And every time we fought,
no, Bez, no, you can't use Rock Burst.
I'm gonna make that rock blow up.
And then he finally does it, and everybody's like about to say no, and then they go, oh wait a minute, this might actually work here, and it worked.
Yeah, and it was.
So there's the hijinks and tomfoolery,
and it worked.
But yet it worked in game.
Yes, and it's a pivot, and it's an iconic moment that I'll never forget in those characters.
Oh, I told that story a million times.
So yeah,
it never gets old.
Yeah, but I think you have an interesting story of hijinks.
Well, his partner in crime is my brother Michael. We were doing the desert dungeon, the desert modules. 3, 4, 5, or 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, that was
the old Desert of Desolation modules. Fantastic. Tracy Hickman, by the way.
Second edition, though, right? It was like late second edition.
Tracy Hickman, the writer of Dragonlance, actually wrote those modules. If you could find them, I mean, they're a tough find. Yeah. You might be able to download them on PDFs online or whatever. But if you could find them, fantastic stuff. Just segue into more D&D content because it's great. And if you need more content, DM's Guild.
They'll be on DM's Guild, and I think they collected them into one book. But yeah, great. Probably 3 best adventures we went on in the second edition.
We're progressing through these modules, having a great time. Fantastically written story. I'm adding my own personal flavor to things, and then you guys are adding your bravado and gung ho.
Yes.
And my brother Michael decided to just run into this situation where
I remember it being a very long hallway with a single room at a very long hallway.
Very Indiana Jones like.
Yes.
Where we knew it was a trap.
Yeah.
We were trying to figure out what it is.
Wasn't there a chest? There was a room with just a chest that was like, it was just the only thing in the room. And you're kind of like,
everybody knew it was a trap.
Yeah.
I mean, you know it's a trap.
Yeah.
And it's typical Pharaoh kind of motif.
Yes.
Is in the desert.
Yeah, very Indiana Jones, like you said.
Yeah, so they know it's a trap. They're getting frustrated. My brother Michael's like, screw it.
Yeah, we like to discuss things at the door.
Once Michael says, screw it or fuck it, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Because this is what he did. He goes running into the room. As he goes running into the room, he sets off a trap.
Which was spears?
It was spears that would shoot out of the wall, and they come out with the force of almost a ballista or bolt thrower. Mm-hmm. And it impaled him onto the adjoining wall.
On the side
On the
wall.
other wall, on the side wall. So he's not dead, but he's messed up. He's stuck in the wall.
And he can't get off.
He can't pull it out. He needs you guys to come and pull it out because he's literally pinned to this concrete wall.
Now that starts the argument of us sitting at the entrance to the door. How are we going to get him off?
Now you're aggravated with him because he rushed in, and he shouldn't have rushed in because now. But he was like, "Well, we had to do something. At least nothing's happened. At least we know what it is. I survived. No big deal. I can heal myself. Just get me out." So now you're trying to figure out how to get him out, and now you're taking more time, and the time became such a problem that a random encounter happened.
Yes, when you get the dice start rolling behind the screen.
What's guarding the maze but the classic Minotaur? So a Minotaur shows up.
And he had that crazy, like I think in that edition, they had that charge, attack, was part of their thing. So he's charging down. We all turn looking down this long hallway, and there's a Minotaur
coming down the hallway. Steam. And the Minotaur inadvertently sets off the trap.
Yeah, didn't he passed, somehow we all dodged out of the way, and he charged headlong into the room.
You guys made your rolls. I think it was dexterity.
Probably whatever it was back then,
It wasn't DC back then, it was dex checks.
Might have been, yeah.
So you guys make saving throws.
It might have been a base saving throw, second edition.
Pure saving throws. You make your saving throws. You get out of the way of the bull charge. He
charges.
He continues down the hallway, sets off almost the identical spot that Mike had set off and gets impaled on the wall right next to Mike's character, who is a cleric of Tempest.
I think so, yeah.
I think that's what he was at the time. So now he's impaled on the wall, but he is also not dead, but injured and stuck on the wall. So you guys start debating on how we're going to resolve this situation. It seems that the Minotaur has been taken care of, no big deal. In Mike's haste, well, it was actually a fantastic idea in the end. Because he realizes that trap is actually motion sensitive. There's like beams of like sunlight coming in, and whenever the sunlight gets blocked, it would set off the opposing shot. So he takes his hand and he does this
in front of the Minotaur's face.
For those that aren't watching, that are just listening, I'm waving my right hand as if to wave it in front of the Minotaur that is impaled on the wall
to set off the light beam,
which he does. Sets off another spear or javelin or whatever it was, and it hits the Minotaur, and he cheers in happiness, thinking, "Woohoo! I just killed the Minotaur."
It doesn't kill the Minotaur.
The Minotaur didn't die from said shot, and conversely decides to take his left hand and start waving it. One of my best ideas ever.
And I remember you specifically looking up the intelligence of a Minotaur
to see if he could realize.
You know what? He's above the threshold.
He was above the threshold to deduce that, I could do the same thing. Yeah. So he takes his Minotaur hand and waves it in front of Mike's character, setting off the trap and killing Mike. And he died in the process. Yes. And that is lending to Bez's question of hijinks and tomfoolery. Yeah. In the end, we don't always remember the treasure that we acquired.
No, I don't remember a whole lot of the rest of that dungeon, but I remember that
storyline you remember. But there are the key moments of tomfoolery and hijinks.
Yes.
As pointed
and
out.
laughter, because laughing like that.
And that only happens in an RPG. That only happens. That's not that's group storytelling.
Yeah,
that's what that is. That was. And that's what, again, back to our tropes. I hate that's why it's called a trope, because we always go back to it. We love D&D because in the end, D&D is group storytelling, right? So I have a basis of a storyline and an adventure. It gets encountered by the players, and they do things that sometimes give me opportunities to do things in return.
Yeah, we unfold stuff for you, and then you unfold stuff for us.
It's like when this happens, and that's where our minds get involved. Mike's impetuousness in his youth, saying, "Screw it, we can't figure this out. Let's just run at it and see what happens."
And gave us an iconic moment, because we only
still talk about this.
We could easily both
20-something years
we
later.
go like this to each other, and we know.
I know what it is.
Exactly what
we
that
know
means.
What it
like,
is. Yeah. If you ever see one of us in the store reacting to especially specifically Michael, but anybody does a brash action 20 years later. We just take the hand and
I know you.
We go up and down. We know exactly what you're talking about.
I remember those.
Yeah. So.
But yeah. Good question, Bez.
Thanks to Bez for bringing up an old memory that we constantly talk about.
Yes.
Probably at least once a month. But bringing it to the community, I think, is a great thing.
Yes.
Because, people are always curious about D&D. The one thing about D&D we get all the time is, I'm always curious. I wanted to play, but I don't have a group. I don't have anybody to play with. So, one of the great things that I wanted to do here in the store was, come on down. We'll get you a group. We'll find people. We've already had 2 groups form in the store.
Yeah, all new players together.
New players, and there are other groups that have formed that don't play in the store but play at home. So, again, the more people we get into D&D, the more we get into everything else that we do as gamers.
Yep.
At least that's our philosophy here.
Yeah, it's the core game. Like we said, it's the root that all branches and trees sprout from.
It's the first one is free.
Yeah.
That's what it is. So, I think that's it. We'll round up with thanking everyone for continuing to watch.
Yep.
Don't forget to check the description below for our links to all the social media, and keep the comments flowing and keep the questions coming.
Yeah, keep asking and we'll keep answering.
And never stop gaming.
Yes, roll dice.
Roll dice. Thank you.